How's it going, guys? White Rabbit here. Today I would like to talk about credibility and accountability, or lack thereof, amongst the flat earthers. Let me explain something to you. When you call yourself a truther, that's exactly what you do. You go after the truth. And if you make an error, you correct yourself. But your aim goal is always to get to the truth. However, what we see with a lot of these channels is that these people claim to be truthers, yet they never correct themselves. And in turn, all they're really doing is pushing a particular narrative. Now, this could mean that they are a shill or controlled opposition, and they are instructed to push a particular narrative, or it could just mean that they are so thick-headed and illogical and irrational that they are fixated on one particular narrative, and that's what they push. And any information that contradicts that narrative, they throw out the window, or they completely disregard. So what I want to talk about today is in regards to Mark Sargent. Now, I did an interview with Mark Sargent a few months ago, really before this whole flat earth thing took off, and I took the video down shortly after because I realized what I'm about to tell you. During our interview, he was talking about this idea that on this flat earth model, there would be no non-stop flights going across the southern hemisphere. And the reason for that is basically because of the elongated proportions of the southern hemisphere on the flat earth model, etc., etc. So he pulls up this tracking website. Let me just real quick play the clip for you.
And I'll describe the map for you, what you're looking at on the screen. And that is, you're looking at real-time tracking of every flight that is currently in the air everywhere in the world. And so you see everything above the equator, it's really, really jam-packed. But if you look below the equator, it's all empty, except for that little straggler that's just above Antarctica, and that's my little whistleblower guy, and I'll get to that guy in a second. But those three giant oceans, so you see the South Pacific, the South Atlantic, the Indian Ocean. There should be planes flying across there. It doesn't matter if it's a nonstop, it could be a connection, it could be a double connection, but sooner or later, if the world is a globe, you have to cross those oceans.
So that's basically the idea, and that's what he was going over, and that's what he had gone over not only on his own channel, but also in various other interviews that he had done up to this point. So after he explained this whole thing, I confronted him with this.
Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to address, and I was going to save this for later in the interview, but since we're on it, have you seen other websites that track planes?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Let me pull one up here.
Okay.
And I'll have you kind of explain this. Did it pull up yet? Can you see it?
I can. FlightAware 24.
So on this map, it shows all kinds of planes flying through these regions.
You are correct. I do see some more planes. I will have to research this.
From there, I addressed his argument from the position of cargo ships. And I pulled up another map that had a plethora of cargo ships on it, and this was his response.
I see the shipping lanes. I'll take a look at that one, shipfinder.net. Again, it's going to take me a while to try to, because even though you see lines of ships, unfortunately, getting from, as you know, one line to, one part to another takes, because I don't even know if they do 20 knots for some of the bigger ones. But yeah, that's kind of cool. I'll have to look at it.
So basically, during this interview, I showed him that his whole argument, which is based on tracking information from various different websites, can be debunked from more comprehensive websites. To which, and you heard it yourself, he said that he'll have to look into it. Now, my main problem with this comes from the fact that he clearly either hasn't looked into it or does not care, because in the preceding weeks and months, he continues to push the same narrative on his own channel and in various other interviews he has done. That, ladies and gentlemen, is not what a truther does. That is not how a researcher behaves. That is what you would only expect to see from someone who is pushing an agenda and or one particular narrative. And to top it all off, recently, a fellow truther actually booked one of these international flights that travel across these oceans. And I'll leave a link for that in the description down below. And yet still, I ask you, has Mark Sargent corrected himself, and has the flat earther community demanded accountability? And the answers to that, ladies and gentlemen, is essentially no. They'll come up with any excuse in the book they can, but they're pushing a narrative, and that's all there is to it. So in conclusion, you will see this repeatedly amongst flat earthers, and the only conclusion that I can draw is that they are not truthers. They are not credible, and there is no accountability amongst them. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Thanks, and God bless.